Hello and welcome, I'm Tim and this is TimBatSea. And somebody in the comments gave me a pretty good idea. They said, why don't you kind of show some of the stuff that's in the wheelhouse? And to tell you the truth, that's something that I just usually don't do or whatever. But we're on a different boat, so it gives me a chance to show you some different stuff that's not usually on our boat. And also, I thought it would be kind of cool to show you this stuff while we're at anchor, because sometimes we're busy and sometimes we're not. Right now we're at anchor just waiting for orders, so I got somebody in the upper house watching things while I take you for a little walk and show you things in the wheelhouse. So. This is basically our wheelhouse like this. This is the lower house. Some people ask why we have two wheelhouses. We have two wheelhouses because we're an ocean-going tug, and what happens is sometimes when we push barges like this, if we were to push this like this, because the barge is light right now, we can't see anything but a whole bunch of metal. But then when we go in the upper house, we can look over the top of everything. Now when this barge is loaded, it'll go, 18 feet down, 20 feet down, something like that, and you can see over the top of it. We still use the upper house for that. But anyway, for the purposes of this video, we're going to just show you some stuff today. So, on this particular boat, like I say, it's not ours, this is the loaner boat that we have. We have 3 steering stations right here. Some of the older boats only have 2 steering stations. The station in the middle is something that's kind of not necessary for the boat, as far as the owners of the company don't have to spend the extra money for that, but it makes it really nice for the operator. The operator usually sits in the one stid chair right here, and it's nice to be able to run the boat there instead of running it from the side. And what happens is when you're running the boat like this, you can't do this all the time. And the reason being is that when you're here, if you came alongside, this would be good for getting in the notch, but you can't see where you are over here. And then when you come over and take control over here, you can look out the side and yell out the door and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how it. So the way this happens is, you can see these buttons right here. On this particular one, you can take control of any of the, I think there are 6 stations on this boat. So there's 3 here, there's 1 in the doghouse, 1 upstairs, and probably 1 in the engine room too, although like I say, it's not my boat. But anyway, so anywhere you're at, you can take the control, and now this station is lit up. You can also go, and that just handles the engine. So in other words, I'm going to just take this over here and put this back over to this engine here, to this controller, so that I can use this without it affecting anything. The engines are off right now anyway, but still don't want to do that. So basically when you do this, that's clutch ahead 1 engine, and that's on the port engine. And then this would be neutral, and then this would be clutch astern 1 engine on the port engine. And you can do the same with both, or you can do what we call, this would be a right twist. This would be all stop. Left twist, and if we hook it up, it'd be like that. And that might seem weird to you. Your private boat, you probably don't want to run full wide open throttle all the time. These are continuous duty engines, and so the 3516s in this boat are rated at like 4,200 horsepower. But I think if you had the same engines in a yacht, they could wind the engines up a lot more so that they would get almost twice the horsepower. I don't think it's twice, but pretty close to twice the horsepower. But you couldn't do it all the time. You can't run it continuous. So what happens is, with these, they have them what they call detuned. They have them detuned through the computer so that we can run full hooked up. And obviously, hooked up on a light boat is not going to be the same as hooked up with a loaded barge, and so I'll show you that later when we go through here. But anyway, to steer, as you can see, we have no steering wheel, and in fact, In my entire career, I've only worked on one tug that had basically an ornamental steering wheel in the middle of it. I never used it. In fact, of all the people, all the years that I was at that company, I was there for 10 years, and I think I knew of one person that had used it once, and I think they were just playing, trying to be Popeye or something. But all of us use this, and this is something that we call, there's two types of steering. And you know what, let me move over here, because this is a much better way to explain this. So this is what we call NFU, and this is FFU. And you can see, we even have it here where you can say NFU and FFU. And what that means is NFU is non-follow-up steering. So in other words, when we push this, the rudder would start to move over. And we've talked about this in another video. But these gauges on this boat, the rudder angle indicator, actually work backwards. Or what I would call backwards. When you put the rudder to the left, it goes to the left. On the gauge, usually this gauge, in my world, would be 180 degrees out, so that the needle would be representing the rudder, and this would be more like a tiller, so that as you went to the left, this would go to the left, and the boat would turn to the left. Anyway, so with non-follow-up steering, you push this over and it's spring-loaded. As it's either, you know, it seems like you've got a lot of throw here, but there's three positions on the switch. There's just a switch. There's no rheostat or anything like that. So it's here, or it's moving to the left till it hits the stops. When you stop it, it stays there and it doesn't return. When you go like this, it does the same thing to the right. Full follow-up is different, and you know, there's a lot of debate. I think I don't know this for a fact, but I think that a lot of the river tugs, like the towboats, I think they use a lot of the full follow-up. But it's very rare in this harbor that people use full follow-up, and I think some of the people that I know that do like full follow-up, I think they're the kind of people that just like to be different and not do what everyone else does. But everyone else around here uses non-follow-up. Full follow-up, if you put the rudder like that, it'll move over to this predefined place. If you go like that, it'll go all the way over and stop. If you come back and go like that, because it might take, you know, 10 or 11 seconds for the rudder to reset, but it'll come over here and stop here. If you go like this, it'll stop there. And it's I don't know that one is better than the other. I really don't. I prefer this. I love this. If I won the lottery and had somebody build me a Nordhaven, it would have these. It would have no steering wheel. I don't need this. But that's just personal preference, and I think it's only because I have 25 years of using something, you know, non-follow-up as opposed to follow-up. If I grew up the other way, it would probably be that way for me as well. But anyway, those are the steering controls, and over here you can take control of it here. They have two steering pump selectors here, and they do this, and this has different, you know, warning, you know, if there's motor overload, low oil, AC power failure. So there's a whole bunch of alarms in here too. But everything is redundant on a tugboat, and at least the ones that push what we call red flag. And so you have to have redundant systems. So if one fails, you can go to the next and keep working. And that's how that works. But when you go to another station, like you come over here, you click this, and then it will come over here. Now it's going to blink right now because I don't have it on, so maybe I have to reset that. Not really sure. There we go. Got it fixed. All right. So we've got the throttles done. We've got the NFU and FFU done. Selector switches. We've talked a little bit about the RAI, the rudder angle indicator. These are just light switches for, not for the navigation, but for the floodlights on the front and the upper and lower floodlights. And these are 3-position switches, so I mean 3-way switches. So what we have here, we also have in the upper house. Some people notice these little boxes. These are actually heaters, and it's not like it heats up. Some of the old style have like a metal band that will heat up the band. These windows actually have like a metal inside them, and you know, a grate. And when they turn these on, these things are great for defrosting. When they work really, really, really well. Unfortunately, they don't. I don't mean that they die all the time. I'm just saying that if you work in the Northeast and it's cold, we haven't had a lot of cold winters lately, especially when we've been working in Puerto Rico. But in the winters, it's not uncommon for, you know, I mean, what do we have? We have 5, 7, we got 7 front windows here. It's not uncommon to have 1 or 2 of them where one of these boxes are out, and the chief is always fixing one of those boxes. But they man, when they work, boy, do they ever work. Anyway, coming over here, this is a navigational repeater. So you can put a whole bunch of different displays on this. Here's wind. There we go. Heading. You can put the rates of turn, depth. You can get all kinds. Basically, all of the nav gear is all on a network, and some of the old school people will be like, "Oh, I hate networks. If once this system goes, they all go." That's really not how a network works. What's kind of cool about a network is that you can have all the systems putting information into you know what they call an M2K or NEMA 2000 network, or you can have them receiving information off of it as well. And if you break one link in the chain, it doesn't have the whole thing follow apart. It just doesn't use that data. So in other words, in this particular case, this is just showing all the information that, or most of the information that's on the network. This is a repeater, and it will show that different stuff. So we can get information right here. But if the radar died, that wouldn't really affect this at all because we're not showing anything on the radar, even though the radar's on the network. If the wind instruments died, the wind would drop out, but all the position data would still be there. You know, it's that the people that freak out about how networks work, NEMA 183 was good. NEMA 2000 is just incredible. It's wonderful, good stuff. We have a radio, and this is tied in with it too. And incidentally, any of you people that have that are recreational boaters might have radios like this that will have a distress button underneath this that you can push, and this is for DSC, or digital select calling. And this is really important that you guys understand this. Just because you have that button doesn't really mean too much. You need to hook it up. It has to get onto the network to receive the data. So in other words, this is on. You can tell that this has the data because when you look at it, you can see the position information right here. So when you do this, and hopefully you'll have an what's it called? MNC number. I forget what it is, but there's a number that you register your boat's electronics to for like your EPIRB and your AIS and all that. You put all this stuff together, and you register this as well onto that, so that if you hit this button, it doesn't just say I'm an anonymous person and I don't know where I'm at, but I know that I have a problem. That's what happens if you don't hook. If you just plug this radio in, put power to it, and hook up your antenna, it'll work as a radio, but that distress button will not work. So I mean, it will just say, hey, I have a problem, but I don't know who I am, and I don't know where I am, and I don't know what I'm doing. So you're really missing out on a feature, or worse, you might think you have a feature that's actually not working. And the way you can test that is if it's showing all the data right in here, then that's the data that's going to go here. This will at least show where you're at. So if you hit the DSC number and the Coast Guard receives it, even if they don't know who you are because you didn't put your digital selective calling ID in there, at least they know where you are, and your position is the big one, and so that's kind of cool. So anyway, because of that, it's hooked into the network, and it grabs all the information off of there. This right here is our Autopilot, and it's connected to the Autopilot upstairs. These are adaptive autopilots, which are kind of cool, which I think most autopilots today, most of them, like I believe the one on my sailboat is an adaptive one as well. And what I mean by that is that the old ones, you would set a course and it will follow that course. But if you start blowing down, or if the boat has to if you need 5 degrees of rudder to maintain that course, it'll just keep steering that course, but it will keep bringing you back and forth. An adaptive one will figure that out. And so that's kind of what this does. And so having a good autopilot on board is really, really handy. That's something that we don't like it a lot. When the autopilot goes down, we don't go anywhere. So it's real important to have that. This right here is our 64-point panel, and I guess we can't see it unless it lights up a display. But it's basically got 64 different parameters where it's checking things like temperatures and pressures and water levels and bilge levels and all that sort of stuff. And this is the reason why we can have what they call an unmanned engine room. Before we had these sorts of things and engines that were approved for this sort of work, in order to do this kind of work, we needed to have somebody in the engine room, a licensed engineer all the time, or a QMed. And now, with these automated engine rooms, this is basically looking at all the different things. And it'll even look at stuff like, for example, if water comes up starts filling up the rudder room because of the shaft, the rudder shafts. That's a room that's closed off. We would never see that. So, years ago, before they had this, you might suddenly realize that you're kind of low in the stern. You open it up and realize that you got 8 feet of water back there. Well, this thing, you set it to an inch of water, and if any water shows up there, the alarm goes off, and we know that. And it also goes for the engine room, for fire suppression systems. It does all kinds of stuff. So 64-point panel, great stuff. This is just our radars, our black box radars. So this is how we control the radars. And I was going to talk to you a little bit about them, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, we have a windshield wiper. Looks like the phone's ringing. Hang on. All right, sorry about that. So we were talking about the windshield wiper, and if you notice, most tugboats only have one windshield wiper, but we also have raked windows. So our windows are tilted this way, and they're not done that way just to be cool. It's really and it's not for people think it's for waves and that sort of stuff. No, it's really for reflections. Because when we work around the shore, when the shore lights hit the windows, they bounce between the windows, and you see all these extra lights that aren't there. And when it's leveled down, the lights hit the angle and bounce down, and it reduces your amount of reflections. Having said that, most of our windows are pretty cool as far as spray and rain and all that sort of stuff goes. But if it gets really bad, we have one wiper. And if you see that wiper that's up, and that's a very common thing, you'll see the wiper that's lifted up like that on many tugboats, especially here in New York. And we leave that up because we like to have windows that are nice and clean, and we have part of the daily duties of the deckhands going around washing windows. And so we pop it up like that, and if it rains, we just go up there with a broom and pull it down, and we're good to go. So that's it. This is the display for one engine. This is a display for another engine, and they'll tell you all kinds of cool things in here that, quite frankly, I was hoping to show you, but no, they've been off for a while here. But I was hoping to show you. You know what? We'll fire them up, and I'll show you some stuff here in a second. These right here are the shaft RPM gauges, and so not only will the engines display what the engines are turning, but they run through a reduction gear. So we might be turning 1400 RPM on the engine, but only turning 200 RPMs on the shafts. And this will show each one, and it also lets you know, just because you put one of these in gear, it takes a little while for it to go. And if you go from forward to astern, it's got to go, slow down, stop it, and then start they're almost 10-foot wheels. I think they're 8-foot wheels on these boats, 8-9 foot, something like that. So they're very heavy, and it takes a shaft brake to stop them, and then they have to start the other way. So you can visually see that. And then we have a horn button here. Now this is something that everybody seems to ask about, and that's they say, what are these things on either side of the compass? And that's something that you'll find on almost every steel or metal boat that's out there, or at least you should. Everything has a magnetic field around them. Even each one of us humans have our own distinct magnetic field that might change as we as we change. The thing with us is that the Earth, the compass is measuring the Earth's magnetic field, and it's moving or staying static as we move around that field. The problem is that field gets interfered with because of all the steel in the boat. So they put these in here, and these go and they try to take out, because of the most of the, you know, the boat is going this way. The way the magnetic fields work, they put these going this way to try to offset the difference of all the metal in the hull. And if you think I'm just throwing that out here, let me show you this. This right here is what we call a deviation table. And this is done for this one, for our tugboat in the lower house. They have another one in the upper house as well. And it's done on time. I think they do it like every year or something like that. Outside company comes in and they readjust all this stuff. Now, all that sounds wonderful, but the bad news is that this is set up for us. It doesn't take into consideration the huge bunch of metal that's in front of us. So that kind of, and so, you know, our compasses are really there because that's old school, and that's what we use. And if all else fails, we have that. But in reality, we used to use a gyro, and now we have a GPS heading sensor, which is a series of, I think, 3 or 4 GPS receivers, and it figures all that stuff out. But anyway, that's that. And what else do I have? Here's the wind gauge, and you can see that it has the little green thing says T for true, and the blue one is for the apparent wind. Right now, because we are at anchor and we're not moving, true and apparent are the same. If you wonder, and it's saying, you know, true 6, apparent 6, direction, and that's true direction. So even though it's off like that, it's coming just off of north. That's what that is. So if you're wondering what the difference between true and apparent wind is, this is something that sailors know, and I can explain it the way I like to explain it at any rate, is by saying that if you were in a day, it's a beautiful sunny day and there's no wind, and you get in your car and you drive 60 miles an hour and you roll down the window, you stick your hand out, you're going to feel 60 miles an hour of wind blowing against your hand. That would be 60 miles an hour of apparent wind. That would not be 60 miles of true wind, because there would be no true wind. And so then, like, if there was 20 miles an hour of true wind going against you, instead of feeling 60 miles an hour, you would feel 80 miles of apparent wind, and the true wind would be 20. Anyway, I don't know. Hopefully you guys know what that means. Anyway, this is our automatic horn system. So each one of these puts a different code out. And more deck lights over here. Another radio over here. This is our Class A AIS with display on it. And it's kind of cool because it's hooked into our chart plotter, so that when we go to anchor or we moor, it automatically switches everything over for us. Our one on our boat doesn't do that. This over here is the Benoit system, the bridge watch system. So that right there is a sensor, and what it does is it makes sure that who's ever running the boat has not fallen asleep or died or had a heart attack or anything like that. If that doesn't happen, this comes on and wakes everybody up, and hopefully saves the old captain's life and everybody else's as well. Then moving down to the light panel, these are the lights right here. Now, each one of these lights, this is the lower port, upper port, lower starboard, upper starboard. The reason why they have lower and upper is because if we were running light tug, meaning it was just, we don't have a barge with us, we would just have the lights on down below. But when we are pushing a barge like this, no one would be able to see those lights because the barge is in the way, so we have to have the lights way up on top. And then we have the 3 lights, 3 in a row mean we're towing, 2 in a row mean we're pushing or have it alongside. Then we have a stern light and a towing light, in other words, white and amber, anchor light, and we also have a couple other lights for nuke that's not under command or fueling, all that sort of stuff. But and each one of these, by the way, you can go one side to another. So in other words, these are when we used to have filament lights, they would go out a lot. these are now LED lights, so they don't go out at all. But you would have two of these, so you'd have an upper filament and a lower filament. And if it went out, it would start beeping like that, and then you know that light is out, and then you switch it over to the other filament. But like I say, they're all LED now, so that's all kind of cool. So that's how that works, and that's kind of cool. Then the last thing we have over here, we have the general alarm. And the general alarm is like if there's any problem for any reason, you know, we're going to sink, we're going to die, we're going to get tripped, there's a fire, man overboard. We need everybody, all hands on deck, we hit that. Then this is our sound powered phone, and this is a phone that if you lose all electricity, it still works. And you can get in the upper house, the lower house, the captain's room, the dog house, the galley, the engine room, all that sort of stuff. So that's basically it. Then we got up here, we've got MFDs, multifunction displays. Right now that we're showing the video camera on the back over here. Our chart plotting system over here. Radar over here. We've got our loud hailer here, another radio here. And people always ask, what are these things? These are the upper, one will move our searchlight this way and the other moves it this way. So vertical and horizontal adjusters for each light, searchlight. And then like on our tug, since this boat here doesn't really do the offshore stuff that ours does, it doesn't need the stuff. We have a whole GMDSS global marine distress system, communication system. It's a big radio, bunch of 4 or 5 different radios. We have all that on our boat, but they don't have that over here, but because it's just a kind of a harbor boat. Hey, you know what? I forgot to tell you about these. It's real important that we have not only have them here, but we also have a ability here and in the upper house that in the event that there was a fire, we can pull these, and these are going to be the main engine. These two are the main engine shutdowns, and this is the air handler shutdown. So in other words, if there's a fire, we need to shut that air handler down because we don't want to have the air handler sucking up smoke and deadly fumes and having it pumped into the clean air of the boat. So we can shut all that down. That happens automatically here, but if we want to keep the engines running and just shut down the ventilation, we can do that here. Now what's kind of cool about these is that if something falls over and hits these, it doesn't set them off. You actually have to lift these up to make them work. But then I told you that I would try to show you a little bit about the engines here. They'll show you how much boost pressure there is, obviously the RPM, and but it'll also show you load. And then from load, they figure out how much fuel you're burning per hour. And like I say, these burn, I think they were burning just a little over 100 gallons per hour when they were full at 100% load. Right now you can see it shifts to 50. When it gets up more than that, this will rescale itself. But then you can have different screens in here. It's a little different than, oh, here we go. A little different than our boat. There we go. So battery voltage, coolant temperatures, oil pressures, all kinds of good stuff. And engine hours, all kinds of good stuff. And what's kind of cool is that because it holds all that information, I was saying this in another video, they're switching from doing preventative maintenance on hours to doing it on fuel burn, which really makes a lot of sense. If you run the boat easy and I run the boat hard, our hours might be the same, but the engine is going to need to be rebuilt with the one that put more fuel through the engine. So it's kind of cool. Just thought I'd pass that along as well. But that's it. Hope you liked it. Now we got to get back to work. See ya. Thank you so much for watching.